Welcome to the premiere episode of Manly Mythical Story Emporium. My name is Thurston Manley, or JY, and I want to bring the Story Emporium to you. Like I said in the premiere episode, or the preview episode, or commercial, whatever you want to call it, I will be talking about stories. And these stories will come from themes that I get from local story slams. There's a local story slam by local, Greensboro, North Carolina. At the local bookstore downtown, they have a story slam in a theme that should have been for this month, but due to COVID-19 and this pandemic and protests and everything, they're not having it. The theme was going to be framed, and it was a tough theme. I'm kind of glad that I'm not glad. I would still like to be in front of the people and share my stories. That's one of the things I really enjoy. But I was glad I got to spend a little bit more time with this theme. I did get 2 stories out of it, and that's how these episodes are probably going to go. I'm going to try to do 2 stories on each theme, and then at the end, maybe some random thought that happened to me during the week, something funny to end with that, because all the stories aren't necessarily funny. They try to be usually. Some of them may be serious based on the themes as we go along, but theme is framed. So enjoy these 2 stories. The first story we have coming up would be the Frankfurt frame job. And the second story is stitched up. Stitched up is a term that is used by Europeans, British people. I watch a lot of British TV, but I do see it stitched up used maybe even in Australian and New Zealand. But stitched up is a term from that. And that's one of the stories with a character that had to change his name due to protecting the innocent of a British Brian. And my Frankfurt story is my trip to Germany with the Frankfurt frame job back in 1998. You may not have heard of it because it wasn't that big a deal, but it's a good story. And please enjoy, please download this show, and I will try to get episodes out to you every week, maybe multiples in a week as I go through my notebooks and figure out what stories I can do. If you have any feedback you can give me, please follow me on Instagram at Manley, M-A-N-L-E-Y, mythical. You know how to spell mythical. M-Y-T-H-I-C-A-L, story on Instagram. So, Manley, mythical story on Instagram. Follow me. Leave me any comments on there where I can improve the show or things you wanted me to work on. Or you can even send me themes. I'll be gladly work on any theme that you would suggest. Something maybe poignant or something you think I could have a funny perspective on. And I'll do that for you. So please follow, please download the episode. After this next commercial, then you'll start hearing some of my stories. Frankfurt frame job, stitched up. Bye. In the summer of 1998, I had just graduated from high school and had accepted an opportunity to play football at Guilford College, which is a D3 school, where it's a Quaker college. The mascot is the Fighting Quakers. I like to call them the Punching Pacifists, or the Pugilists of Peace, if you will. And I was just excited about doing that. And the other reason I was excited that summer was because I had received a letter, which was ominous or ubiquitous letter, which if we were to receive that letter, if anybody right now were to receive that letter, it'll be almost like an invitation to Narnia, or one of those emails where you're supposed to send a bunch of money to like an African prince or something like that. But it was a letter, and it invited me to a hotel seminar. And in this seminar, they were going to tell us how we could get to play football in Europe, in Germany, in something they were calling the Friendship Bowl. I'm not sure if the company's still around. Haven't Googled it or searched it in a while. But it was interesting. You get to play football, American football, just to be clear, we're doing American football in Germany. And this is 98. This is in the time that the NFL did have an NFL Europe team. And where we would be playing is Germany. They had an NFL Europe League. Let me correct that, NFL Europe League. So we would be playing in Frankfurt, and Frankfurt's team was the Frankfurt Galaxy, and we would get to stay in a nice, tall hotel in Offenbach, which is across the river from Frankfurt, and it's in the city. And we could take the tube in, and it was great opportunity. And the only thing I had to do was raise some money. So this made the letter even weirder that we were going to this seminar, which sounds like a pyramid scheme or something like that, and learn about how to raise money so you can go on this trip. I don't remember the exact dollar amount, but I know at one point we had to raise $750 for, I don't know if it was one of the goals or just to show that we're serious, to put down the deposit. But my parents they worked 2 jobs. They work a day job. My dad was a probation officer. He's retired now, and a photographer. And my mom helped him with his photography, and she also worked in the mortgage company at a local bank, big national bank that got bought out. And so we had the means, even though I was in Lewisburg, North Carolina, which is a small rural town north of Raleigh, about 30 miles north of Raleigh. And I went to Raleigh, went to this meeting, got invited. I was so excited. My parents said, hey, you're going to college next year. It would be good to have that international experience. So we got to get you to go. And we did a local car wash. We also did a golf tournament at the local club where we knew the owners. And it was one of the few African-American owned golf courses that is not around now. But we did a golf tournament there and did a lot of different things to raise money. I actually won that golf tournament. I got the trophy here in my man cave as we speak. It's small, but I'm proud of it because it has me and my dad and my uncle that's no longer with us. We won that tournament as a threesome there. And it was just a great experience. But we did frame somebody when we went to Frankfurt, or I was part of a frame job. I guess in Europe they would maybe say stitched up. Maybe that's more London, Germany. But somebody definitely got set up. And I was a kind of part of it, just to be a little bit of a, what we call a dry snitch, not directly snitch, but kind of snitch on them. And we would party almost every night there. It was only a week, but party in that sense, we weren't going to clubs. Most of the other guys were from bigger cities, and they were bigger guys. And I met a guy that was a sophomore when I was in Germany from Florida that was on my team, because there was 2 teams. They set up 2 American teams, and we would go against 2 German teams. And one of the guys on my team was 6'5", 350, gold tooth in his mouth, and he was like 2 years younger than me. And all these guys were big, so I'm not even seeing how I got on this team, because I was, at the time, I believe I was 5'10", about 250. And I think I got on the team because I could long snap, and I was a center, and maybe that was it. I don't know. I got blessed by the best and got on this team somehow. And I enjoyed the experience of hanging out, seeing how they don't quite have the Puritan principles that we have as a state, from the nudity and just the regular commercials in the middle of the day to the cursing on the hip hop, and the fact that you could buy alcohol probably at any age. I don't know what it was at that time, but I definitely drank a lot there and got drunk by accident. And I honestly mean accident, because I went and bought these blue bottles of apple juice, I assume, apple wheezin, which turns out probably means wine. And then I actually sit and think about it. And I drank these blue bottles, and I kept them in my fridge, and they were great. And those, I think, with a non-alcoholic, they just was like sparkling juice. I didn't feel anything. I drank it before practice. But then I went back and got the blue ones. And I noticed some of the other guys on the team drank the blue ones. And they were drinking beer. And they were drinking wine. This is about the 3rd day of our 7-day week. And I was like, oh, man, these people are turning up. So we would go, and we went on a road trip to Heidelberg. They gave us a tour. Everybody drank wine. We came back, and we found more wine and beer. And we were drinking. And there was one guy that I kind of clicked up with, that he looked familiar. He actually looked like a girl that went to my high school, and it turns out he was her cousin. And he was from the general area where I'm from. I was from Lewisburg. I believe he was from Henderson. And we just linked up, because small town guys got to sit together. These people are from all different states. And we became friends, and he got completely too drunk to walk. So we had to get him in the stairwell. stairwell wouldn't work, even though he was like only on the third floor, he believed. Turns out he was on the 12th floor of this hotel. And we just got him to the elevator off of the third floor. And we kept him in there. We tried to make sure we expressed the elevator so none of the coaches would see us. And we snuck him into his room. So me and this other guy got him to the room, put him on the bed. He's passed out. And I guess his roommate and another guy were outside. And they were like laughing outside on the balcony. And I didn't know what was going on. But then you hear a crash, like a psh sound. And they just looked fright. Fright was on their face. You could just see this blank face. Their head comes back through that curtain and they look at me going out because I've put this guy on the bed and I turned his head. So if he gets sick, he can just throw up in the floor or on the trash can we set up for him. And they're running towards me and they're going out the door. I'm like, what the world just happened? So I leave. It turns out these fools have been out there with these Appleweezing bottles and drinking and threw a couple down, why not, and hit somebody's car while they were in it. And this person, I guess, with great knowledge, counted the flights of the floors, figured out the direction, and found out the room number that it was. I didn't find that out till the next morning because they ran away, and I just left. I was like, okay, well, my guy's good. We're gone. I go back to the room. Next morning, the coach is interviewing everybody. Were you in this room? This room that you were in the room, that you were part of this. I was like, no, I just made sure he got to the room. I laid him on the bed. He was too drunk to move. Turns out this did not match up with anything that anybody else had said. They said he got drunk and he was irate and he was throwing bottles. And I had to stand up for him and tell him, no, that's just really not what happened. But I couldn't really snitch on the other guys because I'm not going through the whole lineup thing. But it wasn't him. And he pretty much beat the charge off of, instead of temporary insanity, temporary drunkenness, I guess, is what got him off of dealing with any of that or paying for any of that. But his mom had already been called. And it's rough trying to explain to your mom that you're innocent because you're a booze hound at the age of 18 and 17. I got too drunk to cause a problem. That usually is not a good answer. The liquor made me not do it. It's just not a good answer either. But that's what he had. And I backed him up on it. And that was one of the biggest frame jobs I think I was inadvertently a part of. And I'd say, enjoy your apple wine responsibly. Thank you, guys. I love people, surprisingly enough. I like talking to people. I like getting in front of people. And I also love to drive. So the perfect culmination of these two things would be an Uber driver. Because then you sit in your car all day, you drive around to new places, but you also meet new, interesting people. And the fun part can be meeting the old, non-interesting, creepy people. Because you also learn the process of when it turns creepy. That's when I usually go home. And turning creepy means at a certain hour, you start getting a ride that may seem like a creeper ride. And then it kind of goes and falls like dominoes, where each ride after that becomes just as creepy and or strange. Now, depending on your safety, you may want to consider going back in or staying out if you're getting money for it. But as an Uber driver, one of the questions you always get is, what's the strangest or the funniest story, or what's the weirdest thing that ever happened to you as an Uber driver or rider you had? And one of the ones that I had, because I live in the Triad, which is Greensboro, North Carolina, and which is part of the Triad, and the other part is High Point, North Carolina. And High Point, North Carolina is known as the international furniture capital of the world. It's the furniture capital of the world. And they have a convention twice a year for about a week. And as part of that convention, I take off from my full-time job, and due to my immense financial literacy and lack of more so, I drive Uber for this convention. I drive Uber and I also drive for a local furniture company to help drive them around. But when I drive Uber for it, these are some of the best stories because these are people from all over the world. Some don't understand the culture. Some are just immersed in the Southern American culture and what's expected of an Uber, or just what's expected of anything. Where do we go to eat? What type of food? This food is not like this. And so you get a lot of interesting stories, especially they like to talk because these people are mostly salespeople a lot of times. This is where the company sends their buyers, their agents, their sellers, and things like that to find out what's in the market. And my most interesting story on this was it was the Friday of market, Friday night, going into Saturday morning. So Saturday morning, 2 a.m. I'm thinking about wrapping up because it was such a busy day. I had made a lot of money, surprisingly enough, early on, because when there's a convention like that, you get a lot of rides starting off early in the day, and you can only drive for 12 hours. And I had about 4 hours left, but I had met my quota for the amount of money I wanted to make for that day. And I got this ride request. And because I grew up in a rural town north of Raleigh, our capital in North Carolina, I can understand being stranded somewhere. And I got a ride request that was for somebody I'm going to call Brian. I got a call request for Brian that was 20 minutes away pickup, which is strange. It was considered a premium pickup. It might have been 20 or 30 minutes away. And that was odd for that time of night for somebody going out there. But because I knew it was furniture market, if I go out there to get this person, they are probably headed in a good direction. So if I pick them up, I'm not going to go further away from my home or another place where I can get a ride. And I didn't want to leave them stranded. You know, having the big heart that I do, being a Uber driver. And I went down there and I got them, and it got darker on this highway, got further out. I took the exit. There was no lights on the exit. You get to the bottom of the hill and it just looks like you're in the middle of the movie Wrong Turn, but at night, which is even worse. And I'm at the stop sign. I look right, it's dead end. Look left, I gotta go under a bridge, and it's very, very dark. But there is a light off in the distance. And I'm hoping that this person is at this light, Mr. Brian. And I drive to the light, and it's a circus. The best way I can describe it is a circle intersection. I drive through it, and I get to a gas station, and there's a guy waving at me. And I was like, I assume that's Brian. And I pull up to the gas station, and it was him at the gas station and a cop car. And as soon as I pull up, he goes to the car, and the cop car pulls up. He's like, thanks, mate. I appreciate it. I was stitched up out here. And instantly, because saying mate, stitched up, and due to my extensive love of British comedies, I knew that he was not from North Carolina. And I asked him where he was from, and he told me London. And I asked him, why was he out here in the middle of nowhere? Well, it turns out that this man had met a lovely lady on a date nap, got the request for the ride, for the date, and went to go see her. And she was, turns out, 40 minutes from where he was. He requested an Uber, got down to the lady's house, talked to her the whole way, knocked on the young lady's door. She didn't come answer. She was having him on, logged off of the app. She logged off of the app. He kept knocking. Turns out it was an old lady's house. It was all a trick. He was, as he said, stitched up. But this old lady is getting a man that doesn't sound like the good old North Carolina Southern boy beating on her door, talking in a strange language. English, or British English, Cockney maybe. And he was saying, hey, who's that? You're knocking on the door. Are you there? And so she calls the sheriff and tells the sheriff that she has a strange foreign man beating down her door and he needed to get there instantly. So the sheriff very concerned about an older lady getting accosted by somebody that is a quote unquote foreigner or international person, beating on the door trying to get in. So he flies over there, turns on his lights, pulls up on this Brian character, Brian, British Brian, and says, "Hey, what are you doing beating on this door?" And Brian tells him, "It's like, hey, I got a date in here that I met on this dating app." And he tries to show him the dating app, and his phone died. And the sheriff just didn't believe him. Absolutely not. "What are you doing down here?" And he starts talking to him, and he realizes that, "Boy, you ain't from around here, are you?" He's like, "No, I'm coming from the international furniture market." Explains to him, he's like, "Please let me charge my phone." But I think he had maybe a Droid. The other guy had an iPhone, couldn't charge it. He had to go to the gas station. The cop took him in the back of the car to the gas station, let him charge his phone, and request the app after he proved that he was set up on the dating site. And I guess somehow he could pull up the communications on it. And he said he was very lucky because he could not only have been shot by the sheriff for beating on the door, you could have got shot by anybody in outside of North Carolina beating on their door at 2 a.m. He should have let it go, but he didn't. But he tells me this story as I drive him back, and he just looks over at me. He's telling me about British shows he likes, tells me the story, and he honestly says to me, he's like, "Hey man, are there any other type of dance clubs, go-go bars, whatever you call them here?" I was like, "Strip clubs? You mean, are there any strip clubs open?" He says, "Yeah, are there any strip clubs open?" And I began to tell him, I was like, "Have you not made enough bad decisions tonight? And shouldn't we just go home?" And he said, "Yeah, you're probably right." He didn't go home. I dropped him. I tried to take him off at the house. He apparently didn't like the fact that I tried to offer him advice. Haven't we made enough bad decisions by getting stuck out there? I put him at the top of the hill of his neighborhood, and he requested another Uber, which was me again. But I declined it because I just didn't want to drive him no more after that, because he was trying to go to the dance club after he had almost been shot by 2 police officers set up by a woman and in another country. At what point do you decide to yourself, you know what? Enough is enough. Let me stop this right now. But that is quite possibly one of the weirdest stories that we have that has happened to me as an Uber driver. I have many others, but that one stands out to me, especially sticking with the theme of being framed, because he was stitched up, which is framed in England. Thank you. My random thought that I promised you. For this week, my random thought really circles around the show Hamilton, because it just came out on Disney Plus and I've watched it several times and it's really in my head. And I wondered, as a person of color, seeing yourself represented up there on stage and really bobbing my head because I'm also a big fan of hip hop, is this how, like, maybe non people of color, white people felt watching, like, maybe Grease or Cats, maybe Les Mis? I wouldn't say Cats. Some people don't. It's kind of a disconnect with Cats, but Les Mis, because I was really enjoying it, and so I get it now. I really get the show. I've seen plays, and I kind of enjoyed them. And kind of liked them. It's like, okay, I can appreciate this artwork, but this right here is Hamilton, masterpiece. It's not completely historically correct. It's fan fiction, and historians don't like. But I really enjoyed the story and made me do my own research. And that's my random thought. Like, is this what I've been missing? Is that what representation is? We need more representation as a group of people of color would be good. We're starting to get rid of Aunt Jemima, and we're getting less pink Band-Aids. Some Band-Aids represent our skin color. So I think it's a small part and it's a start, but we'll get there. It all got to start somewhere. I just really enjoyed the show Hamilton. I'm not saying anything salacious or anything about the show. Is nothing that's coming off the wall, as many people do have said that they enjoyed the show. But that's my random thought. I mean, dude, like, how does somebody that's maybe not a hip hop fan really hear that show? Because I'm maybe not a fan of the classic musicals, even though I am a fan of like a Rat Pack type group. But I'm not a general fan of the musical and the singing, and I kind of like not suffer through, but all right through. Do you hear? Is that how you hear? Maybe the sound of music is how I enjoyed Hamilton. It just blew my mind. Thank you guys. Uh, I hope you enjoyed the show and continue to subscribe. Well, thank you for listening to these stories. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you could, please make sure you click subscribe, download on whatever platform you have, and I will try to provide, embark, tell, pontificate funny stories and stories to you every week. Should be, like I said at the beginning, having 2 stories per episode, per theme. Please provide me with themes if you have any ideas of what you would like me to talk about. And if you want to interact with me, please follow the Instagram for the show, Manly Mythical Story, MANLEY, Mythical, MYTHICAL, Story on Instagram, or IG as the young folks call it. Please follow it, send me comments on there. You can DM me, give me topics of what I need to talk about and what you would like to hear. Any feedback would be much appreciated. Thank you.